It isn't often that we talk about the unsung hero of every scene, the cameraman.
Who, me?
And in video games, rather than having a cameraman, we have perspective. One of the first things a developer will decide upon when crafting their game is what viewpoint that game will be played at. Will it be first person, close to the action? Will it pull back to an over-the-shoulder view in third person? Or will it find itself in a myriad of other perspectives? This chosen perspective is highly influential to every piece of a game's design, and in today's video I don't want to tell you which one is best, but rather give a pros and cons list for each so that we can better understand them from a gameplay and development standpoint. So today on Blurbs, let's have a look at perspectives in video games. Oh hey John, where were you?
You're not the first person to ask. I was having horrible diarrhea.
The first-person perspective is the ultimate conundrum, as it has the ability to both feel like the most immersive and least immersive perspective. This seesaw all rests on two core factors, making the player feel like a piece of the environment and simplifying the controls and HUD elements so that visual clarity is at a maximum. It takes a lot of development know-how to get this balance to feel right, and ultimately games like Hunt Showdown and Outer Wilds fully transport you to their worlds due to excellence in overall design, along with clean visual style. But I've noticed open world games like Starfield and Far Cry really struggle with this viewpoint, both due to a lack of that crucial FOV slider, and also because their HUDs and world design are so lackluster and muddy. Navigating an open world can already feel like a hassle, but when set through the eyes of a space helmet, looking at rocks with hundreds of markers strewn about, it all begins to become far too overwhelming, meaning that I often opt for games like Outer Wilds, which push the player with environmental design rather than UI design. But when we pull the camera back, we see something unexpected. Something unexpected. I think a lot of the core issues with first-person games can be remedied by moving to third person. In third person, visual clarity is much easier to create, as its over-the-shoulder view puts the player in better perspective and allows for more smooth camera rotation. When given the option between first and third, like in Star Wars Battlefront or Skyrim, I always start by playing in first, but then slowly turn to the advantages of third. The recent release of Helldivers has also proven that this fixed third-person over-the-shoulder look is more consumer-friendly, as the switch from top-down was a boon for sales of this franchise. It does have its drawbacks though, mainly that you lose that fantastic immersion that first-person games can create. It doesn't feel like you anymore. It feels like an avatar that you control, making the choice between the two a difficult but highly impactful decision. But it's time to lose a dimension. The 2D genre is the most popularly selected genre amongst indie developers, and for good reason. Designing a 2D game is significantly more user-friendly. It's easier to land a distinct visual style, it's better for creating a core set of gameplay mechanics, and it reduces bugs and complications. Most ultra-successful indie games are 2D, from Hollow Knight to Dead Cells, from Celeste to Cuphead. When you think indie, you think 2D. A big reason for that is that since a lot of the basics are easier, the developer has so much more room to explore and create that worlds like Hollow Knight are massive. Gameplay mechanics like Celeste's are perfect, and visual designs like that of Cuphead's are some of the most unique we've ever seen. All that said, there are still some negatives to the 2D viewpoint, mainly that with so many quality games, it's hard to create marketing that makes your game stand out above the rest. That's ultimately why we see such unique and beautiful art in this perspective, as a game lacking that would never make it past release. And in the top-down viewpoint, we get to know what it's like to play God. But I've seen Bruce Almighty, and I really don't want to do that. The top-down perspective offers up unparalleled flexibility. The variety of things you can do at this angle is immense, from twin-stick shooter to role-playing game, from flat sprite art to fully animated 3D models. Recent games like Baldur's Gate 3 and Enter the Gungeon have taken this pliability to its extent. In Enter the Gungeon, this top-down perspective is used most importantly for bullet hell evasion, as you can move your avatar in accordance to oncoming weapon fire, while in Baldur's Gate 3, it's most effectively used to navigate the environment with clarity and strategize with the whole battle and viewpoint during fights. The top-down genre does struggle in some very important aspects though, the greatest of which happens to be one of its aforementioned strengths, as the vast amount of visual input that can come in from a top-down game can be overwhelming to novice players, as your character tends to be a speck in what feels like a sea of visual information. This often can immediately turn off new players and deter interested parties. The isometric viewpoint is a little bit of a personal favorite, but I'm also a little bit of an idiot, so don't take my word for it, take his.
I like it too.
I talked a lot about the advantages of a 2D perspective for an indie developer, but I think a lot of those advantages are mirrored in the isometric viewpoint. Since this is a fixed perspective, it has a lot of the same upsides, but with the added bonus of hyper-stylized lighting. Each scene in an isometric game can be lit so that it is perfectly suited for the viewer, since the viewer can only look in one direction, making for a diorama style as seen in games like Tunic and Death's Door. This viewpoint also creates a lot of visual clarity, allowing you to investigate scenes and see every detail that the developer wants you to. And in the cons list, I have nothing, as this is the perfect viewpoint. Now let me contradict myself in the outro. Welcome to the outro and the contradiction, as ultimately there is no perfect viewpoint, and the decision that the developer comes to is based on intense research and distinct design. Only the developer of a game knows its most intimate parts, and therefore only they can know what makes their game tick. As designers and as players though, it's good to think about these pieces. It's good to think about how they involve with and enhance our worlds, and in the end, how they create the experiences that we fall in love with. But before I go, I gotta shout at some patrons. Mr. Kairu, Bandwagon, Avon, I Want an Apple, and Spider-Man on my new PS5. You guys are awesome. Thank you for another month of support, and thank you for watching the video. Goodbye.